Welcome everybody to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan, welcoming you here every single Monday with an inspiring guest, together with our co-host ACI. Thank you to those that are regulars. We have regulars that come and join in the podium that they can also take part in the chat. We have regulars that watch the YouTube and the Spotify recording. And if it's the first time you're joining us, I welcome you. Let me just tell you a little bit about this podcast. The Monday Motivation Podcast and Spotlight Podcast was started at the onset of the war when I had the idea that we all needed something and someone inspiring and motivating. So that was the whole idea behind it, to have half an hour, 30 minutes every single week with an inspiring guest and motivating guest. And at the same time, to give exposure to Israeli individuals who are making a difference, as well as business owners or amutot. So how do we work? We have 30 minutes of inspiration where you are on mute, but at the same time, we do have a chat. So feel free if you want to ask our guest any questions via the chat, or if you want to make any comments. It's not an official networking group. However, you are welcome to advertise your business if you are a business owner. All right, so I'm going to replace myself now with our amazing guest of the day. Who is our spotlight today? So I'm very privileged to have met Rav Mendel and his dear wife, Iti, who both live in the neighborhood of Ir Yamim in Netanya. They're also newish to Netanya, around just over 2 years, which we are. So I'm privileged to say that we get to see them as he's the Rav of our community. So who is Rav Mendel Wuensch? Firstly, as you'll see, no pressure, Rav Mendel. He's inspiring, he's engaging. Whoever hears him talk is just taken aback. When he comes into a room, the room lights up. They've definitely made a name for themselves in Ir Yamim. So let's tell you a little bit about who Rav Mendel is. He's, in his words, the Shaliach of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He's the founder and director of Chabad of Israel for English speakers. And as I say, in my words, he captivates everyone that comes into a room. And him and his family made Aliyah from Miami, Florida, and as I mentioned, are happily living in Ir Yamim in Netanya. So welcome, Rav Mendel. Thank you for giving us this time when you have something kavua on a Monday morning usually. And take it away. We'd love to hear a little bit about you. As I told Rav Mendel, this isn't a drasha that he's used to giving. We're obviously going to be hearing his inspiring stories, and he's a great storyteller. We're also going to be hearing a little bit behind the scenes about Rav Mendel, his family, his Aliyah. Take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Lesley. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my background. I think in half an hour, I'm not going to tell you my whole life story. You probably would be pretty bored, and I'll just skip to the exciting parts. I was born in Philadelphia, actually, and my parents moved when I was on the day of my bris, literally after my Brit Milah. They moved to Miami, Florida, and I grew up there my whole life. And Baruch Hashem, I had the tremendous privilege of growing up in the community of Bal Harbor, Surfside Bay Harbor, 33154, called the Shul. And throughout my childhood, I had the tremendous privilege of seeing an amazing rabbi, an amazing team of rabbis in that synagogue, Rabbi Lipsker, and all of the shulchim that are in that shul. And Baruch Hashem, Iti and I actually grew up, my wife and I, we grew up in the same neighborhood. She grew up in the Bal Harbor neighborhood. I grew up in Surfside. And we knew each other from when we were very young. We didn't actually start dating until after I went to yeshiva for years. And Baruch Hashem, it worked out, thank God. But yeah, so that's, I would say, the origin of our lives. Now, once we got married, it was a big debate because in Chabad, with a Chabad background, I was raised with a Chabad background. I went to Chabad yeshivot. A lot of times people ask me, where did you study? In Chabad, there's not like one yeshiva. I went to Miami, to Buenos Aires, Argentina for 2 years, to New York, to Baltimore, and then to Yerushalayim for smicha. So that was pretty amazing journey. I have to say, one of the coolest things is you really get experience from all over the world and impressions from people, very unique and amazing people who live all over the world. The community in Buenos Aires is spectacular, and I had really a big privilege of being there and studying there for 2 years. And when Iti and I got married, we had a big question of what we should do with our lives. Where should we move? How should we start our lives? Which I think is really a huge question that faces any young couple and really sometimes people for their whole lives. Where are they supposed to be? So we weren't sure. Iti, before we got married, my wife, Iti, her maiden name is Andruzier. she started a seminary called the Jean Schottenstein Oria Institute for girls. And this was very unique because Iti, as a single girl, you could look it up online, and the articles that were posted about it is very, very unique in the frum, ultra Orthodox world for a girl to start a business when they're single, especially a school. And it was revolutionary, and it was something that I found to be amazing. And when we got married, it was a question of how do we balance the school with also the idea of moving on shlichut, right? In Chabad, some people ask me sometimes in Ir Yamim, why are you not in Taiwan? Why are you not in China? Why are you not in India? Why does a shliach need to be in Israel? I thought the shluchim go to like the far places of the earth. So I'll tell you, actually, Iti, even though we got married and the seminary was flourishing, she was still open to the idea of, potentially moving to crazy places. So we looked into crazy places. We looked into North Auckland, New Zealand specifically, and Bahrain, because it was right after the Abraham Accords. And I actually had a tremendous Hashgacha Prata story in this area. When we were looking into Bahrain, as I'm sure most of the people here probably heard, at that time, Dubai was a very hot topic in the Jewish world. Everybody wanted to move to Dubai. It was a new place. It was new opportunity. They have no taxes. It was really a booming, growing Jewish community. And we had actually been there together, Iti and I, and we saw it with our own eyes. And we thought, Bahrain is another island in that area, and maybe that's the next place where they're going to need a new Chabad couple. Today, Baruch Hashem, there's over 6,500 Chabad couples. So to find a place, you have to be willing to go a little bit crazy. And we thought Bahrain is a good idea. And I was researching it. It did look like a good idea. That week, it was actually, I think, 2 weeks after my daughter Riva was born, I went to the shul. That's where we were living at the time in Miami. And I came into shul, and somebody tells me, oh, I heard you're looking into Bahrain. That's Avi Berkowitz over there. Avi Berkowitz was the one who arranged the Abraham Accords with Jared Kushner. They were the partners that did it together. So he said, you should go over to Avi Berkowitz. Who's better to advise you if Bahrain is a good idea? And I went over to Avi. He was very nice, even though at that time he was probably one of the most famous Jews in the world after what he did with the Abraham Accords. I went over to him, and he was very gracious, and he answered my questions. And he basically told me, Bahrain is nothing like Dubai. You should not move to Bahrain. It is a very bad idea. And you should look elsewhere. It's not a good plan. And that's what we did. And then Iti came up with an amazing idea, which was an idea that took me time to wrap my mind around. But thank God, they say happy wife, happy life. And this was an idea which I really would have missed. And today has been tremendous for us, where people ask us, how did you end up in Ir Yamim? So this is how we ended up in Ir Yamim. Iti said, if you look in Israel, there's a lot of Jewish people in one place, but are all the demographics of Jews in Israel being catered to in the proper way? Specifically, what we could take care of as English speakers who make Aliyah to Israel, and then the society and the culture of the shuls and the Beit Knesset is very different than America. And for this, I'm sure anybody who's made Aliyah has experienced this. When you go to a shul in America, the shul is not just a place of tefillah, it's not just a place of prayer, but it's really a place of community. It's a place of family. It's a place where life happens. In Israel, they have, sometimes you'll say, it's not where life happens. It could be, it's the manas, the community center. There's other things. I've met with Israelis where I said this to them, and they'll say to me, the Beit Knesset is not where life happens. That's where you do tefillah, you do bar mitzvah, you do bat mitzvah. But life happens in the manas, or the playgrounds, or the restaurants, or the cafes. And I think for Jews coming from the diaspora, from Chutz La'aretz, we have this experience that the shul is the center of life. And we realized that we wanted to replicate that in Israel, because Iti had the seminary, and it also was our dream to spend Shana Rishona in Israel. We moved to Yerushalayim, and we spent Shana Rishona on Emek Rafayim in the German colony. And we experienced that as well. When I went to shul, I didn't feel the same atmosphere of an American shul, and we wanted to have that feeling, and we felt like other people would want that as well. So we started researching different places where there would be a need. We also didn't come, we heard sometimes the Israeli politics can be legendary, so we didn't want to come to a community that had 40 years of politics and things to move into. We were trying to find a new neighborhood to start something fresh. And I called a good friend of ours from Renana named Paul Hamburger. He actually was from Bal Harbour. He made Aliyah I believe 7 years before us, around something like that. And I asked him, I said, where is there a new community where you're hearing good things about? Is there any place like that in Israel? Is everything already, established and developed? And he said, no, you're actually asking me. He wasn't sure, but he said, you're asking me right at a time when I'm hearing about a place called Poleg. He thought the whole neighborhood was called Poleg. He had never been here before. So he said, there's a place called Poleg, the beach, that everybody's moving to. It's a brand new neighborhood. Obviously, we know now from coming here, it's Ir Yamim and Poleg, neighboring neighborhoods. Ir Yamim, I believe, was built from scratch. If you would have come 15 years ago, something like that, it was sand dunes. So literally, not just the shul, but the infrastructure of the neighborhood is brand new. And there's still buildings being built. There's one last project that's about to be started now. So we came, and Baruch Hashem, we heard there's a new Ashkenaz minyan that started. The Chabad Rabbi, Rav Shaliach, we made sure to be on good terms with him. So we met with him right away. He made the shidduch. We met with Jonathan. We went to audition in the shul for a few weeks when it was in Piano Baby, when it was in the little room over there. And Baruch Hashem, it's been Gan Eden. It's been Gan Eden ever since. Anybody in Ir Yamim has heard the famous joke from, not a famous joke, the famous line from Goldie Stepansky, where she says, it's Gan Eden. It's a life where you come, everybody's new, so everybody's warm, welcoming, people arriving from all over the world. And for us, it's been a dream. And I'll tell you honestly, I would say even more than that, a lot of times I think, Jews in Israel are frustrated. Why are Jews from the diaspora not making Aliyah more? Why are Jews from America not making Aliyah more? Don't they see, especially after October 7th or whatever, why aren't they making Aliyah more? And I can say for myself, I'm speaking very honestly, it was a big challenge physically, just purely physically speaking, to leave family, to leave the physical comforts of America. They say Americans, the biggest thing when they make Aliyah is they want space. I'm an American mentality kind of Jew like that, where for me, the dream of having the American dream of having a big house with a big lawn and a big front yard, and you just have extra parking spots and everything, like that kind of style was a big dream. And to come to Israel and to have to shift your mentality to where maybe your life, I wouldn't go as far as say is not as physically good, because here in Ir Yamim, we're spoiled beyond. And as I see other neighborhoods in Israel, we're spoiled beyond, Baruch Hashem. But your life is rich with meaning. Your life has depth. Your life has goodness. And it's something where you might sacrifice a little bit on the physicality, on the convenience. In America, anything you want, you press on Amazon, you look, same day delivery comes, either the same day or 24 hours. In Israel, I remembered I wanted to buy goggles. I had to go to 4 stores looking for goggles, trying to find the right pair of the regular pair of Speedo goggles. And Baruch Hashem, I found them by the 4th store, but it was one of those experiences where I realized, wow, if we were in America, you could just press a button and it would come to your door. So I think that for us, this whole experience, and especially from October 7th, Simchat Torah, it only solidified that even more, a feeling like, I think living in Eretz Yisrael now, the feeling that I would describe it is that sometimes you feel like you're watching a game from the sidelines, and sometimes you feel like you're a player on the team. And when you're here right now and you're seeing what's happening around you, just being able to support in tiny ways people around you going through hard times, especially during the war, whether it's going to a hospital and visiting wounded soldiers, if it's going to a shiva, God forbid, chas v'shalom, lo aleinu, should never happen, but to go to a shiva and show your face, it's been an experience where you feel like you're a part of Am Yisrael. And of course, all Jews are chipping in and doing everything from all over the world, but it's been surreal. It's been surreal for me, especially. I was hesitant coming here. A lot of people are moving to Miami. Very few people are leaving Miami. So it was very unique for us to leave. I loved Miami very much, but thank God, since we've come, we felt we found our home, we found our community, and we found a place to build our family. We feel very blessed. So with that, that's our story, I would say, in a nutshell. Probably missing a few points, but that's basically the idea. And I will say that with this 30 minutes, I think what's different about this than a regular, speech or just sharing about my life is I could share a little bit about my thoughts. I think that today, what we're experiencing in the world, every Jew feels it's a tipping point in history. It's not just the average day. There have been days I would say for most of my life and probably most Jews around the world, that even no matter how old you are, Baruch Hashem, we've been blessed since the Holocaust really to have a golden age around the world. The way Jewish life has been developing, you could go almost anywhere civilized or even slightly civilized, Thailand, Vietnam, you could have a kosher meal, you could have a minyan to pray with, you can live in freedom and prosperity in most places in the world. And it's been just tremendous. And all of a sudden, I believe really from before October 7th, Simchat Torah, with a lot of the divisiveness that was going on between us, there's this moment in history that I think we all feel of a tipping point of where are things going? How are things going to go from here? And it's really something which actually in a way goes beyond only the Jewish world, but actually the world in general. You feel there's a lot of tension, no matter what your opinion is, no matter where you stand, there's a lot of tension between people. People are upset. There's random attacks happening that are bizarre, that are extreme. Just now, the attack that happened in Germany, where you have that amount of people injured and killed. It's something where you feel in the world there's a lot of tension, and it's a bizarre time. And I think that right now, every Jew innately feels this. It doesn't matter how affiliated they are or not affiliated, if they know they're Jewish or they didn't know they were Jewish. Right now, every Jew feels that this is a moment to wake up. And this is a moment that we have to step up and we have to make a difference. And I'll tell you one thing that I think about that I feel like is the most critical point in my personal, what I felt that I've learned from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but learned from also different teachers, Rav Kook, the Rav, Rabbi Lord Dr. Jonathan Sachs, all the rabbis across the spectrum, I feel have this message that I'll tell you a story to illustrate this idea. There's a UFC fighter, his name is Natan Levy. Natan Levy is a very talented fighter. I believe he's 9-2, which is a very good record. He's in the lightweight category, but he's a very, very good fighter in the UFC, which is like the highest stage of fighting, a physical, some sort of, mix of martial arts, fighting with each other. And Natan Levy, when he won 2 years ago, he won a huge match. And this was a match that was nationally televised. It was very, very big. And when he won the match, afterwards, they interview the winner. And, it's in this moment of passion where he's still sweating and he's got, bumps and bruises and cuts all over his face. He literally just came out of a mixed martial arts fight with another top professional fighter. And they said to him at that time, what was the big topic in the Jewish world was Kanye West's anti-Semitic remarks. And they said to him, Kanye said this about the Jewish people. What do you have to say to Kanye? So Natan Levy said, I would say to him, if he has something to say about my people, about the Jewish people, he should come meet me here in the ring. Meaning obviously saying that if anybody wants to mess with the Jewish people, let them come and challenge me. And you have to understand, this boy, Natan Levy, his background, he was raised in France, originally French. He made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, Herzliya. His parents were divorced and he grew up with a lot of anger. And he channeled that into fighting. So he was a guy who really used a part of him that could have gone. Sometimes you see people have different character traits that could go in different directions. And he was able to channel a certain part of his personality to become a weapon, to become a powerful, successful person using it in the right way. And after this happened, when he made these remarks, it went viral. If you look 2 years ago, when he made these comments, it went absolutely viral all over the news and all over even the yeshiva world news. And there's a few frum websites. I don't know if anybody here follows them, but there's a few frum websites that specifically are like a way that for, people who are more ultra orthodox and they want to maybe not look at all the news, they only want the specific news that's relevant to them, they go on these websites. I'm not going to mention them by name because of the context of the story. After he did this, there was a close friend of his who was living in Muncie, a very successful businessman who had done some business with him. And he sent him all these articles from the Frum websites. And he said, look at what you're doing to the whole world. Not just are you famous in the UFC fighting world and in the international world, but you've even come into the Frum, the ultra-Orthodox community. Look at them. They're posting articles about you. They love you. They support you. You're so amazing. And when Natan looked at this, he responded just one sentence. He said, it's very sad to me that all of the articles refer to me as secular. All of them called them a secular Jew, Natan Levy. All of them called him a secular Jew. He said, it's very sad to me. And I feel like this story illustrates something very powerful, that I think that one of the biggest challenges that I've seen, and this is actually in a way discussing what we were talking about before of the whole way the community was born and how the community thrives over here, is that sometimes we have this instinct that we like to define ourselves in groups. I actually just read a book with Rabbi Lord Dr. Jonathan Sachs where he discusses this idea. I think it's called Not in God's Name, where he speaks about how human beings have this psychological nature that we feel the need to be a part of a group. So what do we do naturally is we divide each other on purpose because we say, if all of us are the same, then I'm not really a part of anything. I want to be a part of a group. So I have to say this guy is different than myself and I'm part of this group. And the beauty of that is, let's say if you look in the diaspora and Chutz La'aretz, is you'll have sometimes smaller Jewish communities in more remote places that are very unified. Why is that? Because in their mind, the fact that we're Jewish is our unifying factor. Does it make a difference to me if you're Ashkenaz, Sfard, Modern Orthodox, Chabad, Polish, Satmar? whatever kreis of Chassidus you're from, it makes no difference because we're all Jews. We're in this place. There's only 200 of us, so we all have to band together. I see all the time. There's a rabbi in Cozumel, Mexico, and I see that he has every Motzei Shabbat. They do like a beautiful singing. They have like a little kosher cafe over there in Cozumel on this beautiful island in Mexico. And every Motzei Shabbat, he has the most exquisite mix of Jews coming together, and they're singing, and they're just, and you see there's no divisiveness between them. Why is that? Because when you're in Cozumel, Mexico, we're all the same. What's our unifying factor is that we're Jewish. What's the challenge is sometimes when a lot of Jews come to one place, then we have to find a new dividing factor. And that's where sometimes we make divisions amongst each other that are unnecessary. And I think in our shul, we have this organic feature, the fact that everybody speaks English, that comes from an English-speaking country, whether it's South Africa, America, Canada, if somebody speaks a little bit of English, but he comes from a different country, that's our unifying factor and that binds us together. But we should never make the confusion that there's actually a real divide between the Jewish people. Just because we feel maybe more comfortable with this type of Jew or this type of nusach of tefillah, that I'm used to the davening being like this, I'm used to the davening being this long, I'm used to this type of kiddush, this type of language, and we make these divisions for us to realize that us as Jewish people, we are all one body, we are one soul, we are all together. And I think that this idea you see so many times, that the reason why I mentioned all those great rabbis before, all those great gedolim, is because the key of a gadol, what does it mean to be a great rabbi? What does it mean when you look through history and you read books and stories of all the great rabbis in Jewish history? How does someone become a great rabbi in Jewish history? It's not because of their brain. It's not because of the Torah that they've written. It's not because of the chidushim. It's because of their character and because of their kindness. Because I could tell you right now, if you go into the Mir today, if you go into the yeshiva in the Mir today, if you go to Yeshivat Har Etzion in the Gush today, and you want to say, go to the Rosh Yeshiva, go to the head of the yeshiva and say, how many kids do you have in your yeshiva that are geniuses? I went to a small yeshivas. There was always 2 or 3 guys in our class that had photographic memories. You could open the Gemara and you could point to any line of the Gemara. You're talking about thousands of pages of Aramaic, and these guys could read to you the rest of the page. To be a genius is not the real challenge. The real challenge is your character. Who are you? There's so many stories of Rav Moshe Feinstein. What made him such a great posek? There's many poskim. Today, if you want to go online and you want to say, wow, I have a halachic question about electricity on Shabbat, or a halachic question about shatnez, or mixing wool and linen, or all these different questions, there's many, many great rabbis who are brilliant. But Rav Moshe was known for his kindness, for his empathy to another Jew. And I think that's really the key. And I'll share with you another story that really illustrates this idea that I think also, is what gave birth to the Chabad Shluchim today, have become known all around the world for their kindness and helping Jews that have come to them. It started right over here by the founder of Chabad, since it's after Yotes Kislev, is from the Baal Tanya, the Alter Rebbe. This is the most famous, I believe, the most famous story of the Baal Tanya, so I apologize if you know it, but I feel like it's important to share where the essence comes from and what we're trying to emulate. The Baal Tanya was starting off Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre. And I'm sure everyone knows that feeling at the beginning of Yom Kippur. You just had 6 ginormous meals, Erev Yom Kippur. You're stuffed. Maybe you're a person who drinks Gatorade or vitamin water or Vita Coco, coconut water, to make sure that you're hydrated. And you're a little stressed and you have a little anxiety. The fast is coming. Everyone's rushing to shul. People are running around. It's total. Erev Yom Kippur is pandemonium. I actually heard one time that there was a mental institution in California that said there's one day a year that they get an unusual, a bizarre, way more amount of admissions of Jewish patients, and that's Yom Kippur. It's part of the Jewish soul, it's a time that we have some anxiety. It's a crazy time. We feel the holiness of the day. So the Baal Tanya is sitting in shul. His shul is packed. Everybody's wearing their kittel. Everyone's in white. They have the talisim on. They open up the Aron Kodesh and they have this amazing moment. Kol Nidre, the whole thing starts. And all of a sudden, the Baal Tanya throws off his talis and he runs out of the shul. And the chassidim, the people sitting in the shul, are so confused, meaning this is a time you're supposed to be locked in. Even the simplest Jew is sitting locked in. There are some Jews who show up on Yom Kippur. That's the day they come to shul. There are some Jews who are raised, all they know is Yom Kippur. And all of a sudden, the Baal Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, he's running out of shul by Kol Nidre. What's going on? Sure enough, one of the chassidim decides to follow him and to see where he's going. And the chassid follows him all the way to the edge of the town. And the Alter Rebbe is walking and walking and walking. He's following him. He's wondering where in the world could he be going right now? Erev Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur starting, Kol Nidrei. And he takes an axe and he goes to the woods and he starts chopping wood. And the chassid thinks to himself, Oy vey, oy gewalt. How could it be that the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, is chopping wood on Yom Kippur? You can't chop wood on Yom Kippur. You can't chop wood on Shabbos. You can't chop wood on any Chag. What's he doing? Has he lost his mind? Maybe he went crazy. He's saying, this is unbelievable. And he takes the wood when he's done chopping the wood, and he brings it to a small house. The chassid follows him, and he looks from a distance through the window, and he sees the Alter Rebbe makes a fireplace. He makes a fire from the firewood, and he sees a woman had just given birth. And this woman had just given birth, and there was nobody there to take care of her. So he sees the Alter Rebbe. What is he doing Kol Nidrei that year? The Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, is making this woman a fireplace, and he was making her soup to have after she had her child, alone, because everybody had gone to Shul for Yom Kippur. Nobody was there to take care of her. And him, with his deep intuition for another Jew, was able to sense that there was a Jew on the other side of town that needed this help. So I feel like this idea really shares to us and really gives us some insight that we need to realize that this is the tipping point in Jewish history. This is a moment where every single Jew, you look online, every Jew feels in their heart of hearts that now is the time to wake up and to stand strong. And Hashem has responded to us in kind. You know, some people might feel after October 7th, Simchat Torah, where was God? Where was Hashem? How could he let such a thing happen? We had a fence that was impenetrable, supposed to be, with the cameras that were there. There's no way this should have happened. How did God let this happen? In a way, you could say he allowed a miracle to happen for the other side. How did God let this happen to us? It's not right. And it's a good question, and it's a fair question. But another question we have to ask ourselves today is, do we see the miracles that God has made for us since then? Do we realize how privileged we are to have Eretz Yisrael, to have our own army, to have our own government? Do we realize that all the miracles since then, the killing of Ismail Haniyah, of Sinwar, of Nasrallah, the fall of Syria, which is an enemy of the Jewish people for decades, has been a tremendous enemy, and all of a sudden they just fall, they just collapse. And in that moment that they collapse, Israel, always on the ball, attacks immediately and takes out their entire military. Meaning these are things, there are miracles that are beyond, and we need to tap into them and realize now is the time for every Jew to stand up. And I want to end off with this point. There's a famous midrash that I really have been, it's blew my mind since I learned it, and I feel like it's something for everyone to realize. Because someone might say to themselves, I am a random person. I am not a leader. I'm not a great person. I'm not somebody who can shake the world. I just live my own little life as a regular Jew. I'm not part of this whole world movement of, oh, I could change the world. I just hope that when I turn on the news, that Bibi is going to take care of it, or this guy is going to take care of it, or somebody's going to take care of it. And a person could say, I don't make a difference. There's a midrash that says, Vayikra Rabbah, that if Aaron HaKohen, when he went out to greet Moshe Rabbeinu, if he would have known that it was going to be written down in the Torah, him going out to greet his brother Moshe, he would have gone out with a band, he would have had trumpets, he would have done it in the best way. Oh, because he didn't know it was going to be written down, he went out to greet him with a kiss. If Reuven, in last week's Parsha, when the brothers threw Yosef into the pit, and you have Reuven who argues on Yosef's behalf, if Reuven would have known that it was going to be written in the Torah that he was the great defender of Yosef, it says he would have picked up Yosef on his back, he would have fireman carried him, and he would have taken him to his father. Oh, because he didn't know it was written down. Therefore, he didn't act on the level that he should have acted, because he didn't know it was going to be written down in Jewish history and be read once a year and be learned by people and analyzed by people for all time. So the Midrash tells us it's the same thing for us. A person might think he doesn't make a big difference. Every single action we do today is written down in a sefer, and when the Geula is going to come, it's going to be read for everyone to hear. So don't think that your small action does not make a difference. And there's a famous line that says, there's no greater feeling than doing something anonymously and everyone finding out about it. Which means you should realize today that no matter how small of an action you're doing, you might feel like it's insignificant. It's going to be written down, and there's going to be a time where every single Jew in Jewish history is going to come back with us celebrating in Yerushalayim, and it's going to be read for all the Jewish people to hear. So don't doubt yourself, realize that you make a difference. And if you realize that you make a difference, you actually will make a difference. So l'chaim, we'll end off with that. L'chaim v'levracha, we should all have good things. And God willing, we'll have the coming of the final Geula very soon. Thank you, Lesley, for having me. Appreciate it.
Amen, amen, amen. Wow. Okay. So I think I was right when I said that Rav Mendel is an inspiring and engaging speaker, and I trust that you agree with me. I was delighted to hear this. And as I say, I'm privileged to hear him every week. And when I do go to shul, and you're quite right, it is a community. And a lot b'schut you and your wonderful wife, Iti, that we feel that it's community. Almost every single day, there's something going on here in the community, largely because of things that the two of you have created. So thank you so much, Rav Mendel, for inspiring us. I remember the day when you talk about, by the way, you spoke about the audition that you came to check out the community and they came to check out you. I remember being there and I remember being blown away by the two of you, and I'm still blown away by the two of you. And just thank you so much for all your positive words, definitely inspiring. And you're quite right, every single one of us can make a difference. So you've been listening to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Thank you also to our co-host ACI. If you'd like to listen to other inspiring speakers, not everyone is a Rav Mendel, but we've had amazing other speakers. Go to my YouTube channel or Spotify, just type in Monday Motivation Podcast or Spotlight or Lesley Kaplan channel, and we have a world there of speakers for the past year. Looking forward to seeing you next week. I'm Yisrael Chai. May our soldiers be safe, may we be safe, and of course the safe return of our hostages, which we're all talking about right now. Have a great, safe day. Thank you again, Rav Mendel, and thank you for joining.